I'd like to call the meeting of the Willits City Council for September 25th, 2019 to order. Please join me with a pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Councilmember Connell?
Yes.
Rodriguez? Present. Strong? Here. Stransky?
Yes.
Mayor Gonzalez?
Here. All right, public communication. The council welcomes participation in its meetings. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person so that everyone may be given an opportunity to be heard. To expedite matters and avoid repetition when any group of persons wishes to address the council on the same subject matter, the mayor may request a spokesperson be chosen by the group. This item is limited to matters under the jurisdiction of the City Council which are not on the posted agenda. Public criticism of the City Council, commissions, boards, and agencies will not be prohibited. However, no action shall be taken. The other thing I want to kind of put out today before I put the call out for public communication here, at the last meeting I kind of let one group talk more than the other side, and in the interest of fairness I need to hold it to the 3 minutes. So whether we're on the subject matter or not on the subject matter that you're talking about, we're going to limit it to 3 minutes. So I just want to make that clear. I'm not trying to slight anybody, but I kind of left the feeling that I favored one group over the other, and I don't. My job is to be fair up here. So at this point, if you'd like to come up and address the City Council on something not on the agenda, I'll open it up.
Hello. Thank you. My name is John Ferguson, and I represent Calvary Chapel Willits. And we are proposing, hopefully everybody got a copy of this event proposal. If not, I can leave this here and you guys can have copies. But what we'd like to do, we've hosted community events over the past few years, and so we'd like to do a Christmas tree ceremony across the street in Bud Snyder Park, where we would have a Christmas tree, we would bring it in, we would light the Christmas tree, sing songs, and hear the first story of Christmas. We'd provide snacks and drinks. This would all be free of charge. We'd really like it to make it a community event. We think it would be an excellent way to bring everybody together. We'd provide the tree, either an artificial, or we've talked about just possibly getting a real tree. We'd work with the city on how to secure it. The city wouldn't be responsible for any damage to the tree. We've got plans to have solar panels to keep the tree lit in the evenings off of solar power. And so we'd like to also have this tree up there through the duration of the Christmas season, through the end of December, and we're proposing this event. We're flexible on the date as possibly Saturday, December 7th. And again, we really think this would be a great community event. I know there may be some other ceremonies or tree lightings, but this is one that we would like to promote. And it's something, I've lived up here for almost 4 years, and when my family's here, when we started having children, we lived in Hopland at the time, and we would come up from Hopland to Ukiah, where they have a tree lighting ceremony, and it was a great thing, and a lot of the community would come out for that, and so we're trying to do the same thing here in Willits.
I know the chamber tends to organize one here, so I don't know if you want to get with them and maybe coordinate with them. I don't think it was well attended last year, but in years past it has been. But that's something to also consider.
And so, yeah, we would like to, have the tree in Bud Snyder Park and not just decorate a tree that's there, bring in our own tree. We're looking at about 20 feet tall. And there's also, commercial sized outdoor tree stand that we have, and then ways to anchor that tree, the tree itself as well as the stand itself, and we're happy to work with the city on any ways to put a barrier around it.
So I'm going to propose something, since this is not an agendized item, so we really
shouldn't have a discussion about it. If council so wishes, I could have a discussion, you could direct me to discuss this with this gentleman and come back with a report on the logistics of this at maybe the last meeting in October or the first meeting in November. And I'd like to actually talk to REMF and those sorts of things if you're interested in me doing that.
I have a question about, there have been a number of court cases around religious celebrations and religious displays in public areas and, city jurisdiction. If there is something regarding that, we should know before we even go further.
Yeah, that's what's going through my head, and I'd like to talk to Stephanie.
Yeah, I think it's better if you guys talk with him and get a better
I'm
idea.
not objecting to having it on our agenda if indeed it's even within our power to do that. If there's a legal
And we can
question
basically,
about
you
religious.
can direct me to investigate that.
And the one that is done currently at the museum.
It's a non-denominational.
Is non-denominational. So it's,
And it's non-religious, yeah.
Yeah,
So that's all.
thank you, sir.
So you guys can direct me in whatever you like, and I will await your instructions.
I'm in agreement.
with what?
Looks like with directing. I think
We'll
we're all-
investigate and come back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Richard Winkle, I live at 409 Maple Street. I think it's too bad he's leaving. I think that's a great idea, and I know that there's all kind of laws that are out there that, you can do this if it doesn't lock anybody out. At least that's what I remember about it. I think it's such a good idea, and I was raised Jewish. I'd love to be putting a menorah up next to their tree and lighting a candle every night. So if you allow them to do this, I think it's such a great opportunity to expand, community awareness and everything. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else for something not on the agenda?
Okay, I'm setting my timer. I'll try to be quick. So my name is Shauna Jevons, and I'm a resident, and I'm just up here to draw attention and raise awareness about the skate park. I want to thank the city for having such a great facility that our youth can go have outdoor activity for free. I really appreciate it. It's a great alternative to video games. The last 3 times I've been out there, over 30 people have used the skate park. And I have some observations to bring to the council just because I'm not sure how often you guys make it out there. I know you're busy. There's the few concerns I had were heat exhaustion, which could be fixed with a shade structure and a functioning drinking fountain. And then another concern was a porta potty or restroom facility. And luckily there was only one time I was out there. There was fecal matter and urine on the ground, but it's been rare. But I just wanted to bring that awareness to the city council. And I don't mind if you direct the city manager to look into it or talk to me about it later. But I just wanted to make sure that the council is aware there's no functioning drinking fountain, no shade, and no porta potty or restroom. And it's a great resource that we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean, it's worth noting that just through the end of October, Youth Soccer has a porta potty across the street.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's not a solution, but
Yeah, that's
spread the
something.
word through the end of October.
Absolutely, thank you.
Major Bauman. I was wondering if the council had a comment about the statements made by District Attorney Eister concerning Officer Jones. I spoke with the city manager today and the police chief, and they both said that because it's a personnel matter, they can't comment, so I figured you guys might have a comment on that.
I think it would be prudent not to comment on that, and personnel matters are managed by the city manager, not by the city council, and we have always take the view that we don't discuss the details of any pending personnel matter.
That's what I told the other paper. All right. Matt?
Hello, I'm Sally Pringle, and I wanted to talk about the corner at Commercial and Main Street and how dangerous it is. And my granddaughter was hit by a car there in the last couple of years. And I know there's been other incidents, but I just have to say that every single time that I have crossed from crossing Main Street from Commercial heading east from the west, if there's somebody coming from the east, the Van Hotel is so shaded, it's so dark over there, they don't see you. And every time I've crossed there, someone didn't see me. And it just happened 2 days ago where my dog, who's white, who should show up in the shade, but we were crossing the road and a woman came turning left and she just about barreled us down. We had to run and jump out of the way. And I couldn't believe it had happened again. And I normally don't cross there, but I'm concerned about kids and everybody else. And so something should be done. And it's a vacant hotel too, but I don't know how to light that up or what to do, but it's super dangerous. And then Sherwood Road's too fast. It shouldn't be 40 or 45 miles an hour. It should be probably about 30 or 35 in a lot of those areas. People go way too fast.
Sherwood Road's in the county.
I know, it's Brookshaw's, I brought it up before, but still, it seems to be people in the city that end up.
So what you might want to do is talk to the police chief about the other concern and we'll.
About which one?
The corner.
We are, through our Caltrans, we've actually been working with Caltrans on trying to make that better. And we are very aware of
Good, because they should figure out something
No, we
on
agree.
that. Are you talking about Sherwood Road or?
No, I'm actually talking
Commercial.
about the
Van,
commercial.
yeah.
the
Commercial in Maine.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about the Van Hotel, that's private property, but we are talking about trying to make the
That
lights
corner,
better so that that pedestrians aren't a target when they, people sort of.
Sally, can you leave your contact information? I would like to talk to you about this.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a meeting that she could go to that would be relevant that has to do with Revive Ed or with another after the Caltrans
I think
relinquishment
just
meeting?
we're not really having a meeting about it, but we are talking to Caltrans about it, so.
Is there something public that attend?
We haven't, there are no
Okay.
public meetings on it, but leaving her information is great. I think Greta's on the Caltrans committee, and it's good to have real-life examples of why this is dangerous.
Matt, did you want to say something?
Yeah, it's just, this has come up quite a few times. I've experienced it as well.
We all have.
In fact, on the way here, right now, a lady turned left on the red light. So it is really a danger. And I think until we relinquish that we get Main Street to be the city, Caltrans has a responsibility to make that safer, and then once we do, we can make those decisions. But it's not the first time, and there have been some pretty serious accidents.
No, I absolutely agree.
Can I say something? So we contract, the engineers have contacted Caltrans about this and trying to work something else out with the signals. Chief of Police, Scott Warnock, trying to work them out with the signals, and I submitted accident data to them, and they said, oh, there's not enough accidents for them to do it. So.
No, but more recently, we are having discussions with them,
Right.
and they've done traffic counts, and I think we're getting near to something, hopefully.
And in November, we're going to have a November or December traffic safety committee meeting, and that is definitely on the list to see if there's something more that we can do.
All right. Anybody else that would like to speak to something not on the agenda? Okay. Public matters. Presentation of proclamation declaring the month of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Willits. Do I have Judy and, I'm trying to think of who else here from Project Sanctuary?
I'm here. Judy didn't make it, but
Oh, and Travis, is it?
yeah.
Okay. Well, I thought I had signed this already. All right, proclamation of the, oh, I did sign it. This is my copy to read. Okay. A proclamation of the Willits City Council recognizing October 2019 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the city of Willits. Whereas October 2019 marks the 33rd annual commemoration of National Domestic Violence Awareness Month to raise the public's awareness that every home should be a place of warmth, unconditional love, safety, and security. But for many Americans, it is tainted with violence and fear. And whereas every woman, man, child, in America has a right to live free from violence in their homes, neighborhoods, and communities. And whereas children who are subjected to domestic violence often grow up to inflict violence on others, creating a cycle of violence that must be stopped. And whereas domestic violence is a public health issue and impacts people of all races, ages, income levels, and gender. With the U.S. Department of Justice estimating that more than 10 million women and men are victimized by domestic violence each year, with less than half of all crimes actually reported. And whereas in 2019, Project Sanctuary provided 73 women and children housing for 3 months or more for a total of 3,477 nights of safe shelter, received 550 crisis calls, housed 13 families in their transitional home for 1 year, provided individual peer counseling to 489 victims of domestic violence, held 2,900 individual counseling sessions, counseled 60 individuals in support groups, assisted 206 people to obtain temporary restraining orders, and provided prevention education to preschoolers and students from kindergarten through 12th grade, as well as for college students and other adults in our communities. Now therefore I, Jerry Gonzalez, Mayor of the City of Willits, along with Vice Mayor Larry Stransky, council members Matt Strong, Sabrina Rodriguez, and Greta Connie, do hereby proclaim October 2019 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in honor of those who have survived domestic violence, in remembrance of those who have not, and in gratitude to all who devote themselves to ending domestic violence. Travis,
And note, we have the purple lights on.
I see that. It's awesome.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
apparently I wore a purple shirt in your honor.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's so nice. Thank you. Awesome.
Kathy,
Okay.
do you want to talk about the purple lights? And the-
So in October, because it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month, the color of Domestic Violence Awareness Month is purple. And so you might see in Fort Bragg, Willits, and Ukiah, there's going to be purple lights from downtown, around City Hall areas, just as a way to kind of shine a light on this issue. So thank you so much. This really means a lot. And yeah,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, item 3B, presentation by Eric Scriven from NHA Advisors regarding wastewater enterprise fund refinancing opportunities.
Between you and Finance Director, City Treasurer. So earlier, actually 2 months ago, the city manager directed me to find out the opportunity to refinancing all cities' debts, because right now interest is low, all-time low right now. So this one, we city have like 3 types of debts. One is for water and sewer, another one is for success agency. So we're gonna do the presentation actually on all of them for the opportunities. So right now, no action has been taken, so we just give the presentation to the city council.
And just to clarify, at our last Finance Committee meeting, you may recall that we reported out that the Finance Committee directed us to come forward with a resolution regarding the successor agency refinancing, which will come later. However, we're not quite ready yet with the data from the wastewater potential refinancing, the water and wastewater refinancing. Therefore, now that we have the data, we just decided to give you all a presentation to see what that looks like. To council as a whole, we would take the advantage, since Mr. Scriven was here for the successor agency, we figured he could come and discuss. We're not here for an action item on that, but so you can see some of the data regarding the successor agency, potential refinancing, and we can take direction on whether you'd like us to come back with that.
Can we move, after we've had that presentation, can we move the other one up so that we could deal with them?
And that is up to you.
That's a good idea.
That is up to council to move that up, and
It's up to the mayor.
What's the request?
The other item about refinancing is down at item 7. And so
We can
once
reorder that.
Once we've learned about this one, we might as well,
you can reconvene as a successor agency, and then you can decide on the other issue.
if that's okay with the mayor.
I have a family emergency.
Oh,
I
sorry.
made a tough decision to stay here because I felt it was important enough to be here for item number 4. So I've shared my circumstances with the mayor, and I would ask that.
I'm here at your pleasure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Eric Scriven with NHA Advisors. As Stephanie and June just mentioned, this is non-action items, just a heads up that there is an opportunity to refinance your wastewater bonds. And it's a little technical. We put a lot of the detail in here. So I'm going to go through it because it's important for council and the community to know there is an opportunity. The rates are very, very low. As your finance director mentioned, you have outstanding debt for water enterprise, wastewater, and successor agency. This is strictly on the wastewater. You have 4 loans outstanding. They're actually all very good interest rates. The USDA loans and the 2 wastewater bond issues, if you will, are very good interest rates. But right now, interest rates are exceptionally low. And they've been holding low for quite some time. So your annual debt service on the debt is $1.1 million, and it sort of goes down. You can sort of see the shape of your outstanding payments as certain loans mature. Then it steps down over the next 30 years or so. So really, there's of the 4 outstanding loans, there are 3 that you could refinance. 1 that you really cannot refinance just because of the terms of that loan. The 2015 loan you cannot refinance just because it's not redeemable until 2025 without significant penalties. The 2011 and the 2007A and 2007B are all callable, as we say in the bond business. However, the 2015, and I put some terms. In fact, I can change the page right pretty quick. But the 2011, as you can see on this sheet, you've got a 2.5% interest rate. So even though that's callable, that doesn't make any sense to take out the market. That's lower than where the market is right now. So the 2 transactions that you have that look to make sense for refinancing under the current situation, who knows what it's going to be like when you actually are ready to go, but right now it looks very good, are the 2007A and the 2007B. That totals about $8.8 million of outstanding debt. And I think I just kind of went through that. The 07 and 07A and 07B USDA loans, they're at 4.25% outstanding, and they mature in about 28 years. Believe it or not, the interest rates right now make the savings by refinancing those 2 loans, the $8.9 million of outstanding debt, very attractive, and we'll get to that in a moment. Let's see. So we're going to get into, if you like, the simple thing is it makes sense right now to refinance, but we went into this a little bit more deeply just because I think it's important when you have an opportunity to refinance. You can refinance and just sort of set it and refinance for savings on those particular transactions. We think it's important, it's really like one bite at the apple to refinance, to look at it very carefully and structure that refinancing so that it makes sense for your overall ratepayers. And so there's a couple of options that we put on to these sheets for your review. Not necessarily decisions to be made, that's part of the discussion as we would get into the project with staff to figure out what's the best approach for the city and the ratepayers. Any questions so far on up to page 3? So there's two options to refinance. You can refinance and just take your savings on the 2007A and 2007B bonds on an annual basis when you're just looking at those two bonds, you're refinancing and restructuring to put new bonds in their place. Or you can look at it more holistically with your existing outstanding bonds, your 2011s that'll stay outstanding because the rates are so low that it doesn't make sense, and the 2015s, which you cannot refinance. So if you look at those outstanding payments, you can structure the refinancing of the 2007s around that. So those are the two options you see. You sort of see the same repayment shape where it kind of steps down. That's option one, just a level annual savings on the existing debt. Or you can look at it more holistically and try to smooth the overall payments, including the debt that you're not going to refinance out. This just goes into the details of option one, which you can see clearly. It mirrors the existing repayment shape, which steps down over a period of time. The statistics are in the box up in the upper right-hand corner. Your outstanding loan amount or interest rate is 4.25. Current rates are in the low 3s. Your annual savings would be about $63,000. Over the next 28 years, it would be about $1.7 million of cumulative savings. The present value savings, which is an important statistic to sort of determine if it makes sense to refinance, is the 13.6%, and that's a metric that we look at. If you're under 3% NPV savings, then you have to have a good reason why you would do it. That's usually the typical thinking in the when you review these things. If you have something that's over 5% NPV savings, typically there should be a good reason why you're not doing it, because you're saving a lot of money then. Right now, at this snapshot of time, you're saving about 13.6%, so it looks pretty good. So this is option two. As you can see, the dotted line is a very flat line, which is better for ratepayers and better for setting a nice foundation if you were ever to do any capital financing, or just trying to create a rate structure that makes sense, that you could do pay-go, pay-as-you-go kinds of financing projects as well. This is much more conducive for that. You do pay a little bit for that because you're putting a little bit of your refinancing debt sort of back a little bit, and that creates a higher interest rate on the new bonds that you're, the new bonds that would be issued, and your NPV savings goes down from 13.8% to 12.2%. Still a very, very attractive number. So there are some trade-offs for looking at these two structuring options. So that we're getting really into the weeds here. I think the simple, if I was to leave you with anything, the refinancing looks very good right now. Bond markets can change, but it's a pretty attractive savings for refinancing these bonds.
Can I ask you a quick question in the back slide? When you're talking about present value savings percentage, does that take into account sort of the time value of money?
It does, yes.
And that is what that really
It is. You can see, let me go back.
And maybe you could explain a little bit about what the time value of money is for the movie.
Well, the simple statement for the time value of money is $1 that you have in hand today is worth more than $1 30 years from now. Because time value of money, you could have earned, you could have earned money on $1 today. That $1 20 or 30 years from now is probably worth 20 cents today, because you can reinvest that 20 cents to be the $1. Is that a good explanation?
And the fact that the Fed just lowered the rate again, does that obviously affect the bond market?
It does. It helps. It keeps it stable. The bond market is real interesting. It's kind of counter to what everyone sort of thinks. If the world economy is kind of deteriorating, the U.S. economy is deteriorating, or there's craziness going on in the Middle East, there's usually a rally, if you will, in the bond market because there's a flight to quality. People start putting their money in safer investments like treasuries and municipal bonds. You have more demand for that investment that drives down the interest rates. So craziness or bad things in the economy usually means lower interest rates. That is the presentation. We put some more statistics in here about coverage. The second option enhances. If you have sort of a level payment, you're going to create a better coverage ratio for the wastewater enterprise, which is a good credit when you go out to the rating agencies. They like to see a higher coverage ratio, which means every dollar that you have net revenues after you've paid all your expenses that's available to pay debt service. If you have $1 of net revenue after expenses to pay $1 of debt service, that's 1 times coverage. That's not as good as having $1.25 of net revenue for every $1 of debt payment. That would be a 1.25 coverage. 1.25 is better in the rating agencies' minds. They like to see a little bit of cushion in your operating results to pay debt service, and the option 2 also helps do that, does that. So we put that in there just so that you could see it. Let's see, what else do we have here? Next steps are, I think there's, the opportunity's been presented. We're certainly glad and willing to review the loan documents and refine the refunding analysis and discuss with staff and council. And if it's something that, and I know there's more complications with the wastewater enterprise, your city manager has indicated that to me, whatever is required to sort of clarify the issues and the savings opportunity and make it suit the city and other entities in the best way, that's part of the process.
Thank you.
I just was trying to understand this in my mind, and then I noticed that on option 2, you have the annual cash flow savings from 2020 to 2033 is $173,000 a year. After 2034, it is actually a little bit more than we would have paid.
Right. That's
so we're saving a lot of money up front.
right, but you can sort of see the chart. You can
Yeah.
see how it's all leveled out.
Right.
That's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, and I tend to feel like that realizing those savings now in the next 10 years is really valuable to us. And it also then, it doesn't hurt us. It helps us in the long run too. But we realize the benefits sooner. Whereas if we do option 1 or option A, we're kind of putting off the savings to a later time.
I agree.
It was interesting, I thought the same thing, and that's why I was a little bit interested that the present value savings was slightly below option 1. And to me, sort of intuitively, I thought because of that structure that actually should have been higher than option 1, the present value calculation, so.
I know, that
sort of-
is a little backwards when you think about it.
Yeah, I don't know if you think that might be wrong?
Well,
I mean, it's hard, because also
you're stumping me right now, but I know that the numbers are right, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, the difference is very minimal, but intuitively, I would have thought that number would have been.
Well, if
bigger
you
perhaps.
look at it, you're actually, your payments, that level line there versus this line, the line on this one, you're actually paying off your debt sooner, which creates, you have a higher debt
Oh.
payment early on, so you have less savings. This one,
That makes sense.
This one, no, you have less debt payment because you're pushing it back to level everything out. So that creates slightly higher interest rate, overall less savings.
Okay.
So I think me and Madge were, as part of the Finance Committee, and we had chatted with Stephanie that obviously would need to come to the whole council to discuss whether we would want to move forward with this. I think our concern obviously is we want to do what's best for the ratepayers, but we also have a partner in this, and that's Brook Trails, and there's a step that Stephanie has to do before I guess it would come back to us.
Yeah, so we, as you know, we had a lawsuit with Brook Trails, and right now we're still discussing our settlement. We've gotten some numbers back from our auditors, and we'll be discussing that with Brook Trails. And in the same conversation we talked to Brook Trails, we should actually, I would like to bring that in front of them so they understand that we're trying to bring rate, stabilize rates. And I guess what we talked to June about is that by doing this, we may be able to keep rate increases from that. I mean, we could not have to have rate increases if we do this. So that's something we would want to discuss with Brook Trails.
Madge, you had.
One other question for you, and you've projected a slightly higher interest rate on this number 2 alternative.
Right.
And that's because it's so long-term that...
It's a little longer on it. Don't want to get into the deep
But
stat.
given what's going on with the interest rates, is there a chance that we could get a better interest rate than that?
We typically like to present numbers where we under promise, over deliver. So, but the market's bouncing around. You just, if I knew where rates were going to be and however long it takes to discuss with the other entity, and we could be going to market in 2-3 months. Don't know where the market's going to be. I'd probably be retired if I knew where the market was going tomorrow.
But it's probably not going to fluctuate that much in 2 or 3 months.
Well, it's been very, very volatile after, the Saudi Arabia and the oil issue just a couple of weeks ago. We had a sell-off, surprisingly, because I think everyone was just going to cash, not really. There was a sell-off in bonds, and it hurt the equity markets too. So,
Does anybody else have any questions?
Do we need to direct staff on this or not?
If you so choose, we're going to continue to work on this and then bring it back to you if that's the will of council.
Again, if it saves the ratepayers money, I think it's...
And we're not making a decision now, it's just basically directing us to come back, do a little bit more work on it, talk to Brook Trails, and then bring you back a proposal on whether you want. We'll go to move
Thank you,
forward.
sir. All right. I guess as they say, now for the main event. Item 4, Enactment of Ordinances. Mr. Dusty, come forward. I'll read it. Discussion and possible adoption, reading title of and waiving further reading of the ordinance amending chapters 17.06, 17.22, 17.24, 17.26, 17.28, 17.29, and 17.85 of the Willits Municipal Code to 1, authorize the cultivation, processing, distribution, testing, research, transportation, dispensing, and manufacturing of adult use, parentheses, recreational cannabis. Number 2, allow processing, testing, research, manufacturing of industrial hemp for the purposes of cannabidiol, CBD extract, or oil production. And number 3, allow for full type 7 cannabis and industrial hemp manufacturing facilities to operate in industrial zoned lands. And 4, allow for both cannabis, indoor cultivation, and nursery business to operate on the same property. And 5, clarify that authorized retailers may sell cannabis products specified for use by animals. And 6, to retain the existing buffer zones approved by the council upon adoption of the Municipal Code 17.85.050, paren 3, ordinance number 17-01, 9/27/17. All right, Dusty.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Thank you for introducing this item, Mayor, and also a bigger thank you for not asking me to pronounce the word that has the acronym CBD. This matter, just very quickly, before I quickly introduce it, because I recognize that we have one council member who has some other matters to attend to. You have the agenda summary, you have the staff report, and then you have both the clean version of the proposed ordinance as well as an edited version of the proposed ordinance showing staff's recommended changes since the last time this came before the council 2 meetings ago. Staff has received one letter of correspondence from the public on this matter, and that's in the form of a letter dated today from Mr. Charles Eaton with VRX Labs, and I believe the council has a copy of that letter that staff received earlier today. The changes that are proposed, the council may recall directing staff to eliminate the previous proposed language related to non-retail storefronts, whereby folks could establish a non-storefront and then complete delivery services of cannabis and cannabis products from there. That section has been deleted per the direction of the council at the 2 previous meetings ago. It still will be allowed, it still will be correct that cannabis delivery services may be permissible in conjunction with an established dispensary, of which the city will allow up to 3 dispensaries. But then again, pursuant to state law, delivery services that originate from outside the city limits may deliver cannabis within the city limits. We did retain the language that was previously in the proposed ordinance, noting that businesses that do deliver within city limits are subject to obtaining a business license and paying our cannabis tax. And the council is aware that there's a pending lawsuit from a number of local jurisdictions and the state questioning whether the state has the authority to trump local authority to disallow delivery services within their city limits, and we'll certainly pay attention to that and keep the council updated. There are a few other changes of note. We provide some clarification and consistency on the industrial hemp language, noting that essentially, you're allowed to manufacture hemp for the purposes of extracting CBD oil or hemp oil. So making sure to distinguish between other types of hemp businesses where they might be interested in making textiles like ropes or clothes or something like this, and that this industrial hemp activities relates to the extraction of CBD and hemp oil. And again, this is before you for discussion and possible adoption, and staff's here to answer any questions that you might have.
So I will open it up to the council first, and then I'll open it up to the public. So everybody has some initial questions for Dusty. If not, I'll open it up to the public.
No initial questions.
Right, Dusty? So if you want to, at this point, I will call to see if anybody would like to step up, and we'll hold you to the 3-minute rule. So come on up if you want to say something.
I just have a question. What is manufacturing industrial hemp? Does that mean growing?
Dusty, maybe you could explain that, so I give the right. Sorry, Dusty.
I just didn't know what that word meant.
Manufacturing.
What does manufacturing industrial hemp mean? Does it mean growing it?
So the question, what exactly entails hemp manufacturing? And in this case, it's taking the plant matter and extracting oil from it. So the process, I understand, is similar to full-on cannabis extraction, where you're taking that raw material and extracting the oil out of it to be used for a variety of products. This land use category is not intended to mean manufacturing of hemp for the purposes of creating other types of textiles, whether it's clothing or hemp, or rope. My understanding is that, at least in years past, a number of products have been made using hemp, whether it was sales or whatnot. And so, again, this is just distinguishing manufacturing hemp for hemp oil and CBD oil.
But not growing the hemp.
And yes, thank you for reminding me of that question. The growing of hemp would continue to be prohibited within the city limits of Willits, whether it was indoors or outdoors. And that's specified in the ordinance specifically.
And specifically in the ordinance, it says cannabis and industrial hemp manufacturing means a facility engaged in either the compounding, blending, extracting, infusing, or otherwise making or preparing a cannabis or industrial hemp product.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greta. On the spot.
57 right?
All right. Had somebody over here raised his hand to come up. He beat you, Adrian. And please state your name.
My name is Mike Anderson. I'm with the company Leaf Organics. We have the facility down the road here on Lenore Ave. I was here a few weeks ago. I spoke on behalf, on the same topic. I want to just reiterate the fact that I feel like we've been very good operators here in the city of Willits. We've made a very large investment here, and a couple of the concerns that we have are around, like I said last time I was here, the Type 7. We were advocating that you allow for us to use hydrocarbon extraction. It puts us at a disadvantage in the marketplace, not being able to do it. I'll just leave it at that. The other thing that I want to just touch on, a concern that we have after the last meeting, I went back and kind of re-looked at what the proposed changes were. And if the comments that were made around, extending the buffer zones around from where they're currently at, from I think it's 200 feet to a larger amount, the way that we have to reapply for our local license year after year, I think that if you were to extend it, it would put us in a position to where we wouldn't qualify per the local ordinance the next go around. And so it's something that we're strongly asking you not to do. 200 feet, we have our current buildings where they're at right now. We're out of that 200-foot zone, but we just won the local dispensary license. We have more plans. We want to bring in a third-party testing company, a tissue culture facility, and more uses down the back of our business, and we wouldn't be able to do that. It would actually knock us completely out, and of course, it would be detrimental to our business. So the other thing I just want to say is that, the public's concern about kids, I just want to state for the record, I'm a dad. I have a 10-year-old daughter. Everything means the world to me, my other partners that are here. We have too many kids in our group. We have a ton of kids in the group, and so we share the same concerns. The idea of your kids getting around cannabis or being put in some sort of a unsafe environment is just as important to us as it is to you guys. We've slated, close to $500,000 budget just having security around the facility. So I'll just leave it. Thank you.
Adrian?
Just a quick question. I'm wondering if this...
So, why don't you come on?
Okay.
And...
Sorry, I took my back earlier today. Sorry for my ignorance on this, but I'm wondering if this substantially changes the prior zoning provisions from what they were before this, or if it will, if it passes, if it changes.
If the ordinance we have projected today to vote on,
Yeah.
if that changes prior zoning,
For medical, or what the zoning restrictions, the
Buffer zones?
the buffer zones, the zoning restrictions,
Well,
all of those various things.
I think I think if it goes as we have written today, and I see Dusty shaking his hand or his head, no, that it would not change things at the moment. If we opted to change buffer zones, then it would. Is that correct, Dusty? All right. Next.
Good evening. I'm Pat Ridgell with Level 5 Custom Processing. I'm on the other side of town from these gentlemen. I'm over on Blosser Lane. And the reason we're here is because of Willits. And the reason we're here really is because of these folks back in here. We've put a lot of effort, a lot of money into our facility. We have a top-notch facility. It's been inspected by the state as well as everybody here. And we're proud of what we've done. We're a medical facility, and we are aimed at medical cannabis use. We also use hemp oils and other things for the medical side. I highly encourage you to please just approve the ordinance as it's been given to you and leave the buffer as it is. We are just outside the 200-foot range. You would not know we were there unless you knew we were there before you approached, because we have no signs, no nothing. We don't allow anybody in. If anybody's in violation of the state law or the Willits law, the state will flat shut us down and end our operation. So I thank you for what you've done. And if you had any questions about hemp oils or anything else, I didn't know any of this 3 years ago, but I know a lot about it now. So thank you, and I highly encourage you just to approve the ordinance, please.
Ma'am? You're next after her.
I'm Sally Pringle, and I was just wondering, what is it that is, what's going on for people with disabilities, and how do we get our medicine in the city of Willits? Can somebody please explain that to me?
I think you have to be more specific, I think.
Well, no, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how.
Well, there,
I don't have a garden, and I need medicine, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get it.
there's a provision in the ordinance for 3 dispensaries, and I think they're in the process of
Getting
getting their permits. And so fairly soon, there will be 3 allowed permits and
then
dispensaries.
Okay, and then for people on Social Security or SSI, how do you plan on them getting their medicine? Because the only legal way for somebody on SSI is to grow their own, on their own where they live. It's SSI for food or medicine for food. You're allowed to grow your own food on the property where you live for you and your initial family that lives right there, but you're not allowed to give it away, and you're not allowed to give it to other family members if they don't live on the property with you. So I don't know how a person on SSI, because first of all, they wouldn't be able to afford it at a dispensary. How are they going to get their medicine? Who's growing? Is there going to be a lottery system? Is the prisoners going to grow for the people at the jail? Don't they have a garden down there? I'm just throwing out options because I'm trying to figure out myself. Like, I've been deprived for a whole year, and I have medical issues, and they're getting worse by the day. And I have a recommendation, but I don't have a way to get my medicine. And the other issues are that there are some products available, like CBD products, at Mariposa Market, which is a health food store. And then there's also healthcare facilities, like say a chiropractor's office or a doctor's office, which aren't considered a dispensary. And normally a chiropractor's office would have products like Metagenics or some sort of a product that they could sell on their shelves that you wouldn't be able to get at the health food store. So are these people going to be allowed to sell the CBD and the THC to their clients, or are we going to have like a form that you could fill out with your doctor that would be turned into the city of Willits, and then these dispensaries that are growing for medical would be able to do a lottery system for these people? Because really, the only way for someone on SSI to get their medicine is for them to grow it themselves in their own backyard, because they won't have money to set up an indoor grow, which is actually more dangerous for them because it's subjecting them to indoor home invasion robberies. And so I'm just trying to figure out like what your plan is for people with disabilities, because that is the biggest issue right there.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Are you asking us who will pay for the cannabis
I'm
for
just-
the people on disability? I'm trying to understand your question.
Well, nobody can, I mean, for somebody on SSI, there's only one way, really. I mean, you should research those laws, because people with disabilities that have a
But is that
need-
what you're asking us?
I'm just asking you, let's come up with a plan. What are we gonna do? And I'm asking you myself, because I'm wondering how I'm gonna be able to afford it, because I won't be able to afford to buy it. All I'd be doing is working and buying my medicine, and I wouldn't be able to do anything else, really, because of the prices and stuff. And I've grown it in the past, and that works for me to have my own, because it depends on how much a person uses and what their needs are, and it's really between them and their doctor. So
All right.
I don't know, but I'm just bringing the awareness, and it is an issue with Americans with disabilities.
Sir,
So there should be a solution.
boxcar.
Dr. Del Potter. I'm Chief Scientist at Leaf Holdings. I just returned from Washington, D.C., where I testified before the FDA about the first clinical trials to use cannabinoids to relieve pain in place of opiates and to treat opiate use disorder. These studies have a pediatric component. The reason I bring this up is that as a company, we feel passionately about the potential for using these compounds to treat both adults and children, to provide a less harmful alternative to opiates for pain relief, and that we care about the children in our community. In our facility, we're trying to raise the bar on cannabis medical products and their pharmaceutical production. And that's what we're trying to bring to the community. A world-class pharmaceutical manufacturing facility with high-level jobs and an international reputation. We run a secure facility with a perimeter under 24-hour surveillance and buildings that can only be accessed with electronic keys. We've spent a small fortune, as Micah alluded to, on HVAC, odor control. I would invite members of the community to personally see our facility, the safety measures we have undertaken, our compliance to state and local law and regulations, the level of security we have, and the quality of pharmaceutical operation we're trying to create.
Okay, would anybody else like to speak? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Sarah Bodner, and I'm with Henry's Original. We are a cannabis brand that's based out of Laytonville. We're a cannabis brand based out of Laytonville, and we're actually the largest employer in northern Mendocino County. And we are specifically interested in bringing some of our business here to Willits. We've outgrown Laytonville and the amount of commercial space that's available there. And with these increased setbacks, or the idea of increased setbacks, it would rule out the possibility for us to come in and use existing commercial space. And I understand that there's concerns about public safety, and especially around schools and children, and we absolutely share those concerns. And I can assure you that this industry is the most regulated and controlled in the history of California. There's never been a safer business to bring into your neighborhoods. And we would love to be able to do business here, to be able to support community events, to be able to support Frontier Days, to be able to create jobs. Like Micah said, like, our businesses are made up of families that live here, and we're so committed to being part of the community and part of the community in a way that works. And we encourage you to make that possible so we can be part of Willits' growth. Thank you.
Right. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Amy Groom, and I am here again to say that I want number 6 on the item to be moved, the buffer zone. It's not item 6, sorry, 6 underneath item 4. I believe that the buffer zone should be increased back to where it was originally. I'm not sure what year it got changed, but it went from 600 to 200 feet. And with this 200 feet, properties can share property lines to where transporting and delivering can happen
within 200 feet of a school. I work at Blosser Lane, and it is surrounded by commercial properties, and it concerns me that the future could be the cannabis industry right in our right next door. It's already right across the street from us. Bechtel Grove now has it right across the street. Kids know what's there, and I remember you saying the last meeting that you value kids and you put kids, not your exact words, I'm sorry, that you have kids in your best interest. Well, show us. Show us to the parents that have kids at Bechtel, Blosser, Brookside, the high school, that you're putting our kids first. We do not want these, even if there's not a sign on the building. We do not want these next to our children. We do not want armed guards at a business right next to our schools. There was just a robbery in Ukiah. Whether it was permitted or not, I don't care. The fact is, we had an armed robbery, and that could be Remco, that could be next to Blosser Lane, and it's unacceptable. You guys need to put your kids first. It's not just the dollar signs. It comes with crime. We all know this. Drugs bring crime, whether it's for medical, recreational, or whatever it is. Drugs bring crime, and I think it should be moved further than 600 feet. And how can we do this? I know not everyone can be here tonight, but I'm just going to continue to say it, that it needs to be further than 200 feet.
Anybody else? Anybody else like to speak? And please state your name.
My name is Melissa Jurgensen. I've been a member of this community since I was little. I'm a parent. From living here, I've seen what cannabis brings, and it brings a lot of crime. I'm very concerned with this happening right next to our schools. We're putting our children at risk. We need to be looking at their safety. I am concerned about the emotional and also psychological effects of children when they have to go through another lockdown because something is happening next door. I think that is something that we all need to look at and see, that our children in this community, their safety is what we all need to be looking at. These are our children, and I hope that one day I will be able to have grandchildren here and they won't be subject to more crime in this community and more lockdowns at the schools. Thank you.
All right. Do I have anybody else?
Hi, good evening. My name is Rebecca Diaz, and I'm a community member. I'm also here to ask you to rethink the buffer zone. I'm here to ask you to not approve the additional chemical being used unless that we rethink the buffer zone. As a parent, with everything that has been going on, it's very anxious to send our children to school, to think about a lockdown happening, to think about our kids being in danger. And I honestly believe that, having the buffer zone so close to a school just gives that much more potential for danger around our children. I'm not saying that I don't want this business to be here. I just don't want this business to be so close to our school. I want to make sure that we keep our children safe. I want to make sure that we think about our children and not our pockets. I'm not saying that we should take away the buffer zones that are in place for those businesses that already have them. I just want us to rethink for any future applications, because yes, Blosser Lane is a very potential spot right next door to have this business. And I think that it's really important that we think about the well-being of our children and the anxiety that comes to sending them home. I don't think we've all grown up with this industry in our backyard, and
I think that none of us are going to come in and try to make this a target business. But when we look at crime, most of this crime happens from people that are out of state, that haven't grown up with this business and that don't respect it. And so I really urge you and all of you to think about the safety of our children first. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so folks, anybody else that wants to speak? And so that we could keep this meeting going, I'm going to ask that everybody refrain from the clapping and stuff. I get it that you're supportive of whoever's speaking, but I want to keep this moving along, okay?
My name is Gary Vandenberg. I work at Boxcar Manufacturing right up the road. Appreciate you guys going through with this so far. I'd like to address all of the statements on crime, and I ask you to do some fact checks on that in all of the other states that have had cannabis going legally for longer than us, because the numbers are actually the other direction. You'll find that crime actually goes down when legal cannabis is in a region. Also, so does alcohol use typically. I'd also like to extend to you guys an invite to come and check us out, and that includes our community. We put our employees' safety first, and when you come and see our facility, you'll see just that. So, thank you.
Okay. So, somebody who hasn't spoken already. Go ahead.
My name is Will Hinton, and I'm here to oppose the buffer zone. I think it should go beyond the original. It should be 1,000 feet or more from any school. I personally have 3 kids in the school district. I understand that cannabis is a large part of our culture, always has been. The lady that was speaking earlier, I think what she was trying to do was prove to a point that these are companies. She, as an individual, wants a right to her medicine. That's her thing. So she's saying basically she can't afford to buy from them. Seems like nobody's looking out for the small people as an individual, and it's more about companies coming in here and making their money and their tax dollars, which I'm for. But near children, no. 1,000 feet is my thing. And to Amy's point, there has been armed guards. You know, there's been ads out for armed guards. And so you're saying, okay, we're not armed guards, and that's fine because we have our key cards and our security. Well, if you don't have armed guards, then you're probably the one they're going to want to rob. You got your little key cards and your special whatevers, but I don't think it's safe enough. I don't think I'm very passionate about it, and I don't think for my kids as future Willits residents that it's the best place. There's a time and place for everything, and I don't think 200 people in the school is that place. So, thank you very much.
All right, so anybody else? Going? Okay, back up here then. Would anybody like to speak?
I would like to, not affecting my vote on this particular day, but I would like the statistics about crime going down in areas that have legalized. But it does seem to me very commonsensical that when it's been a black market operation, when it's all been illegal, there has been more crime. So having a regulated, legal, and with all sorts of security requirements attached to having a legal business, that there would be way less opportunity for crime. It would be really helpful if we also had a legal banking system for the cash that gets generated, and people are working on that too, and there's legislation about public banking. But I think that I'd like to have a corroboration of the statistics, but it seems common sense that the black market economy has had more crime than the legal economy. And I certainly don't want to have our community subjected to more crime than we already have.
Right.
Yes, I have several points to make. Madge had mentioned that there is currently no banking system, and thus the challenge of transporting money. Why then is there the urgency to push forward? I mean, approximately 18 months ago, before this council, we just started talking about, or we made a move approximately 18 months ago to approve medical cannabis. And we said, we're going to give medical cannabis, the majority of the council said, we're going to give medical cannabis a try. We're going to give it some time and see how it goes. We're barely 18 months in. We haven't seen a banking system come about to ensure that that transfer of money is happening safely. This council hasn't put in place, and during that time period, any impact fees to support our community. But we've put an ordinance in place, and now we're discussing increasing the ordinance from not just medical but to recreational when we don't even have our impact fees in place. That means that individuals coming in here, there's no benefit. I mean, you go to other communities and you see that they put in a new housing complex. There's a beautiful park next door. This community is not seeing anything as a result of all of this new infrastructure that you're putting in. And I believe that the reason that one would want to come to Willits is likely because water's cheap here. We have no impact fees like many other areas. And construction costs, as we know, and the council has acknowledged and city manager has stated in the past, that our construction fees are way too low. Our permits, if you compare cost of permitting for construction for the city of Willits to what the county costs or other cities, it's incredibly low. So it's attractive for those businesses. But then you have to ask yourself, what's the cost to the local taxpayers? Are we then, in a way, subsidizing the cost for this big business to come into our community? If this is truly what our community wants, then we should do it right, and we should make sure that the impact fees are in place before we're rushing to bring on more cannabis. It doesn't seem wise. And then in terms of the buffer, as you all know, I fought vigilantly that I didn't feel that the 200-foot buffer was in place. We heard our city attorney advise us that we should increase the buffer for recreational cannabis because the buffer for medical cannabis is currently at 200 feet. I don't see any reason why this council can't say, okay, we made a prior decision, we're going to grandfather in those people who've already made an investment, those permits that are already approved, and we'll honor that. But going forward, we want a 200-foot buffer for all medical use. And we're discussing something new tonight.
600 foot.
I'm sorry, thank you, Match clarification. A 600-foot buffer going forward for any new permits for recreational. And we're not changing anything, or don't need to change anything for the commercial, the recreational side of things. It's not like we currently have a 200-foot buffer for recreational use.
Sir, can you take your phone outside?
I'm trying to find it.
I know, could you just take your bag outside while you're looking for it? It's rather disruptive.
So we have every opportunity tonight to do the right thing and ensure that with the recreational point, the recreational ordinance, that we've set the 600-foot buffer. So that's what I'm asking of the council tonight.
Okay, would anybody else on the, excuse me, folks, can we stop with the clapping? Okay? All right, it's just, all right, well, let's refrain from it, okay? We're trying to conduct business. Okay. Anybody else on the council like to speak? Okay, at this point, I guess it'd be appropriate to call for a motion on the ordinance.
I will move approval of the staff recommendation.
I'll second.
All right. Motion second, any further discussion?
I still oppose.
Okay. Kathy, call for the vote.
Councilmember Klein.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Absolutely no.
Strong.
Yes.
Stransky.
Yes.
Mayor Gonzalez.
Yes. Thank you, everybody that showed up. I Appreciate it.
My apologies. And with that, I'm going to excuse myself.
All right. The one thing I want to reiterate, and Dusty, while you're still here, that any businesses that don't follow the rules would basically end up losing our license. Is that correct?
That's correct. They'll have to try it some other jurisdictions.
Mayor, before I leave, you had mentioned that if any business doesn't follow the rules, that we'll hold them to it. Has there been any instances of safety concerns, fire calls, anything like that at any of the current operating businesses? Have we had any need for emergency personnel at those facilities?
Council Mayor and council members, thank you for the question. Actually, I kind of welcome that question. I've thought about it for a while. The reality is, yes, we've had some calls there for alarms. But this is a good opportunity for me to put the safety aspect to rest. And so I hope that everybody's listening well. Industry use of Class 1B, as we're doing it now, flammable liquids, they're being used in other industries in this community. We don't have that many manufacturing facilities or industrial facilities left here. But some of them, other businesses are using those in their processes for cleaning parts or whatever. Those businesses have been around here before my time on the fire department. They're existing non-conforming. We've been to a couple of different alarms at facilities here. And
those are cannabis facilities?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
Extraction, manufacturing facilities. However, they're being held to a standard and using alarm systems and equipment that we don't see anywhere else in our community, in any other industry, in any other manufacturing industry at all. They're not subject to that. They are grandfathered in. They are existing non-conforming. But I assure you that if we had the same type of elaborate alarm systems at these other facilities, we'd get alarms there as well. As an example, I'll use an example. One of the super high-tech, lower explosive limit sniffing devices, initiation devices, that alarm system at one of our facilities, it had a drop of ethanol get onto the sensor, centralized to that sensor. It set the alarm off, sent the fire department there, this happened twice, sent the fire department there to look at this facility. We were there to look at literally a drop of ethanol for safety reasons. Now, I'm gonna go to my house. I have 13-year-old twin daughters. They like to clean their, they use acetone right out of the bottle. They use it with a cotton ball. They clean their fingerprints or their fingernail polish off, and they throw it up on the table. That cotton ball on your kitchen table is more dangerous than that drop of ethanol that's on a sensor inside a room that was specifically built. And I take a little bit of, we worked hard at these facilities to make sure, and I'm not standing up for the cannabis industry, but I'm trying to give you guys a perspective of how hard we've worked for the safety factor that are at these facilities. Your house, these have 2-hour fire barrier walls, sealed doors, Bluetooth light switches so there's no electrical between the switch and the fixture, full mechanical ventilation that keeps a constant negative pressure inside the room to get anything that's in there out. We worked hard to get these things in place. We have facilities that use things like MEK as parts cleaning. They have no, they use them every day. They use rag, they wipe their parts, they throw the rag down. If that were in the same room at one of these new facilities, that sensor would go off. But we don't see it in the older facilities. We don't see it at Metal Effects because they're not subject to the same kind of regulation that we're putting on this industry now. You know, so yes, we have been to those facilities. We had a facility where we actually had a fire in the facility. That can happen anywhere. It was small, but I will tell you this. They used their standard operating guidelines. The alarm system worked. The employees used the appropriate extinguisher that was placed in the appropriate location to put that fire out. It was out when we got there. So yes, they towed the line and they followed what they had to do. The most comprehensive set of standard operating guidelines that I've seen at any industrial facility in my career is at one of our local operators right now. I've never seen one better. I keep a copy of it to give out to people so that this is how it's supposed to be done. I know it sounds, I'm taking an unbiased approach to the cannabis industry. It doesn't matter to me one way or the other, but when we're using safety as a reason to try to get this cannabis stopped, it's not fair because they are towing the line to the gills. I'm going to tell you that I do want to say that to the Leaf facility, the Boxcar facility, we brought 10 Mendocino County fire chiefs / fire marshals today to their facility and did a walkthrough. We had the full tour. Micah was there, Gary was there, Dell was there, because these facilities are going in all over. Well, guess what? You know why we brought them to Willits? Because we built the best one, the safest one. We have worked hard on that. It's unfortunate for other facilities that would ever want to come to Willits. They're going to have to meet that standard. And I won't have anything less than that as your fire chief. So as far as safety goes, I would love to have this conversation with anybody, but I promise you that the 2 last alarms that we've had at 175 North Lenore, it's more dangerous for your daughter to take the fingernail polish off of their hand and throw it on their kitchen table where the candle is than to have a drop of it on the LEL sensor that's in that room. So, you know, we beat up the safety side quite a bit. I am your paid fire chief, and we work very, very hard to make sure that happens, and there's a ton of money spent. And it isn't just at that facility. We have 3, and we've worked hard at all of those facilities to make them safe. Right on down to, I'm going to use this time. We think about it far enough that there's no requirement. I'm going to use an example of an ethanol storage room. There's no requirement for that to have a shutoff valve. They can pump fluid out of there, in and out of that facility all they want. There's no room for a shutoff valve. I don't know what it cost, but I required the facility to put in a valve that's normally closed, that's held open electrically, that if the alarm system goes off, it automatically shuts that valve. So that ethanol cannot get in that building. For one, it's for my firefighter safety. That is what I care about the most when it comes to that. It isn't to save the facility. It's to protect firefighters that go into that facility. They complied. They didn't ask questions. They put it in place. One of our CO2 extraction facilities, we make them put a blue light on the outside that says when our firefighters show up at the door, there's a blue light that's shining if there's carbon dioxide in that facility. Because I want them to know that there is an odorless, tasteless gas that they're not going to see in that room. It's shining bright outside. It's all for safety reasons. We've towed the line when it comes to public safety and employee safety to the gills. The one facility that we had a fire in, again, the standing operating procedures is what put that fire out, and correct location of fire extinguishers and appliances. So I'd be gladly talk to anybody about fire safety and what's there. We are moving into a new element, and that is the Type 7 that is in the ordinance. There is a chapter 39 of the brand new 2019 California Fire Code, which we haven't adopted yet locally, that deals directly with that. I've already reached out to the facility that wants to move into the Type 7 world and said, we don't have that yet, but that's what's coming, and we need to meet that standard. That came with a 2 or 3 page letter of what it's going to take to already change that facility to meet that new requirement that's coming down the road. I met zero opposition for that. As a matter of fact, they're on their alarm system, they're taking it a step further. As an example, it says that in the room where that Type 7, it has to sound a local alarm, local meaning in that room if it meets a certain level. They're taking it a step further. They're going to alert everybody in the building that something is there. Anyway, we've worked very hard to do that. Yes, we absolutely, it's public record. We've been to these facilities for alarms. 3 of them, they actually had ethanol in the room. But we found out why. One of them we fixed. We knew why. We fixed it. No problem. The other one, it was so minute that we're going to move the sensor. Literally the sensor's located in the wrong location. It is not a safety hazard where it's located. I'm passionate about our public safety and the employees that work there. And if there's any questions, you can call me or ask those questions of me now. But that's where I stand on the safety at these facilities.
One follow-up question. Do you feel that the Little Lake Fire Department has been compensated financially for its time that has been put into regulating the industry? Do
No.
you see that the taxpayer has picked up any of the burden, or the volunteers have picked up any of the burden for the industry? Because I also raised the concern about impact on our community beyond just fire safety, lots of other issues, but from a financial standpoint.
We can only collect with our fees, Prop 218, we can only collect for our services rendered, the costs that we've incurred through the process. So we do bill for all of our plan checks, but there are a lot of things that you don't recoup. But that's everywhere. The county will tell you the same thing when you go to building and planning over the administrative time that you spend on the phone, people walking in the door, the questions that are asked of you. You don't get to collect all that. There's not a mechanism to get that. A lot of times there's not anybody to bill for that type of service. But you're not going to make, you shouldn't make any profit off of your fees. There's only to reimburse the cost that you're out when you go through that process. Have we spent way more time than the money we've collected? Absolutely. And I'll tell you right now that our fire department has moved forward with impact, doing a nexus study for impact fees. Because we are affected financially, and no, right now we haven't collected money like we feel like we should have with some of these businesses. I can give you an example. We feel like our duty officers, I want them to show up with what they call a 4-gas analyzer. It's a meter that measures for flammable vapors. We have them on the department already, but we have 2 of them. They're expensive. They're not on apparatus. We take them with us when we need them. I'm putting one of those, that's a cost to me. I'm putting one of those in every single one of our duty officers' rig. So when they're the first person there, they have it in their hand. That's the type of thing that impact fees pay for. We haven't collected any impact fees. We don't have a way to do it. We don't have a mechanism to do it, but we're working on it. So you're absolutely right, Sabrina. Do I feel like the time-wise we've been impacted to the point that it's hard to keep up, and have we not been compensated for it? I would say yes, but I would also say that we're working diligently to try to overcome that.
Dickie, do you have a question?
I do.
Can you come
I
up?
think that the 2
Dickie,
words
Dickie,
that encompass
Dickie.
what you're talking about.
You need to come
I'm
up here.
sorry. You're right. It's been a long night. They just let me out yesterday morning.
All right.
Once again, Dickie Winkle, 409 Maple Street. What Chris was talking about is a perfect example of what's called an unfunded mandate. You guys make the rules, they gotta play by them, and does it increase their workload? Oh, yeah. And you've given them no way yet to fund that. And I think Chris is bringing up a very important point. I think you should give them more money so they can do a better job.
So we don't have an item on the table yet.
Yeah. All right.
Are there more questions for me from anybody?
I think we're good. Yes, sir.
Have you finished?
I'm done.
All right. I think we're going to move away from this now. And consent calendar, thank you. Item 5, consent calendar. We have item A, City Council minutes from August 28th and September 11th of this year. I so move. Do I have a second?
Yes, a second.
Seconded by Madge. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank you all for coming.
We have information reports that are in the packet. Okay, folks, we have the meeting still continuing. We are now on item 7, commissions, agencies, and authorities. The Willits City Council meets concurrently as the City of Willits Planning Commission and City of Willits Successor Agency. So at this point, we are going to sit as the successor agency, the Willits Redevelopment Agency. We're being asked to approve a resolution authorizing the successor agency to the Willits Redevelopment Agency to refinance outstanding 2002 tax allocation bond of the former redevelopment agency of the City of Willits, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute related professional services agreements and approving other related documents.
But that part is cut off. So, other related documents. It's not on there.
Well,
I'm sorry, other related documents is stricken from the title.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
Oh, it
We're
was.
going to remove.
Oh, okay.
Other, yeah, because there are no other related documents.
Okay,
Sorry.
all right, thank you. So June?
Sorry.
Yes. Well, Mayor, City Council, and this will be the package, for a minute. So this is success agency, right? City Willits have an outstanding debt about $1.8 million for success agency bond. And due to the bond rate, the interest rate right now is all-time low, so city is looking forward to refinancing the success agency bond. The bond term for it's gonna be 5 years to mature, and we estimated $95,000 per year in reduction for that services payment. But we don't get the $90,000 in return to the city because those money go back to the pool to the county for the allocation. So city right now is about 25% allocation for the residual savings. That gives us approximately about $24,000 annual savings for this refinancing. And this $24,000 will go to the general funds. That's the reason we try to refinancing this success agency bond. Yeah, and I have the consultant here, Eric, and then to answer all the questions regarding specific for bond refinancing.
Long time no see.
I tried to hear it.
Hi again. This is a short presentation. Again, the rates are low. It's a small transaction. Summarize a little bit too. It's a small transaction. It's $1.8 million, and it's short. So you have less time to really create savings. You have to have the key aspects to make this work are low cost of issuance and getting the threshold interest rate, a lower rate. So that's what we're trying to do. I'm going to go through the slides. The idea is to create more residual savings that are shared by the taxing entities, including the city. The outstanding bonds are about $1.8 million, 5% rate. It's a 5-year maturity. I think it's important to make clear that there is a cash-funded reserve. That cash-funded reserve, which I'll show in a moment, it will go to pay the last year's payment. That's why it's there. It's there for security for the bondholders. So that money would be realized. It's going to pay that last year's payment. So we'll get into that. I want to be very clear about the benefits of this transaction and what it will take for Department of Finance to approve it as well. So the interest rates are estimated at 2.75. That's a great differential from the 5% outstanding. Again, because it's small and shorter maturity, it's still very tight on savings. You can get through that lower interest rate. You can get $465,000 of gross cash flow savings, but you'll note that the net present value savings that we mentioned earlier in the wastewater, the percentage, $40,000 of net savings is relatively lower. It's not a 10% NPV, it's more like 2% NPV on the refinancing. And so then the question becomes, why would you do this transaction? The reason that you and the other taxing entities, I think the schools would be interested as well, is right now the reserve fund, as I stated, will go to pay the last year's payment. It sits there until that time for the security of the bondholders. You could refinance and restructure the transaction. You still have to produce savings, or the Department of Finance won't approve it, but you could restructure it as June mentioned, where you can get those savings over the first 4 years and basically make a full payment that 5th year where you had a reserve fund payment. So you're basically getting $95,000 for those 4 years, of which the city will get 25 to 28% is the residual allocation based on a conversation with the consultant. So the city, and then the other 75% would go to the other taxing entities. So there are NPV savings, but they're below the 3% threshold NPV savings. So the reason why you might consider doing this is because you'll get those savings. As we discussed on the wastewater, you're restructuring it to sort of smooth things out, doing it for a strategic reason. The same thing goes here, where you're restructuring and not to take your savings in the 5th year when you get the credit for that reserve fund. You get the save, you and the other taxing entities get the savings for the first 4 years instead. So that's really the decision. You're saving money, but it's slightly under the threshold that wouldn't typically be, yet absolutely you do it. So that's the reason why you might consider doing it.
Question, how long does it take to go through getting approval so that this actually happens?
We're going to get to that, but yeah, that's part of the process. So I think this has all been said. The idea is to keep the same maturity, and using a private placement, which is a direct placement to a bank like a Wells Fargo or an Umpqua bank, versus going out for a public bond, which is what we were discussing with the wastewater transaction, because that's a longer term and it's a larger size. This is small and short, so you want to keep your costs down on issuing that. The direct placement is a faster approach and a cheaper approach, and they're very aggressive in the short maturities. So that would be the proposed plan of finance. So this is the proposed finance team. The oversight of the project is by the city staff, city manager, and finance director. We're the project manager again. QTAC Rock, which is a national bond counsel firm, has provided a very, very aggressive fee proposal. Escrow bank, you have to put the money for the refunding in a bank, and that U.S. bank is who you use currently. And HDL Cone produces a lot of this data that's going to be used to sell the bond or the loan to a bank. So the next steps, this I think what Board Member Strong wanted to know as far as the time frames. With approval tonight, we would rapidly put documents together that would go before the successor agency board and the oversight board right after that. The successor agency approves the documents, the financing documents, and then the oversight, then the successor agency board, this body, would send it over to the oversight board for their approval of what you've done, basically. And then with the oversight board approval, we put together a report that's required by law, a financial advisor report, that we send that package with the documents to Department of Finance. That's where you see they have 65 days to review and approve. They've been doing a better job, faster. This is a smaller transaction. It's not very complicated. So it might be inside of 65 days. Given the marketplace, that is a bit of a concern because it's been volatile. So the idea would be to move as quickly as possible. And in fact, we put October 23rd and October 24th, but I've asked if it would be feasible of your city manager and finance director if we move that up one to like the October 9th and October 10th, just to approve documents so that we can get that application in with DOF as soon as possible. I don't know if that's feasible, but we would make it happen if it is feasible for the successor agency board and the oversight board. So
Who is the oversight?
that's it.
Who is the oversight board? Is that
It's the county oversight board. Yeah, so I sent an email to the county oversight board today, and to request the special meeting on October 10th, because I'm thinking October 9th, we hear approval, and the next day, we're gonna go to oversight board approval, and then after they approve it, and they can turn around to the state Department of Finance, so that's quick turnaround. But I'm not sure is October 10th for the county oversight board is feasible or not, because I need the response from them. They have to at least 3 bodies, right? Get the 3 people.
I don't know. I know that the board is composed of a county representative, a school district representative,
Right.
1 or 2 city folks,
Yes,
and maybe a
yeah.
special district representative.
Yeah,
And this meeting happens in Ukiah.
in Ukiah, yes, Ukiah.
But if,
Yeah.
but if we approve this on the 9th, then even if it isn't the 10th, you could probably make it happen fairly
Precisely.
short.
Yeah,
Right,
as soon as we
right.
can.
Gives you
it's
flexibility
successful.
to do it when you can get together.
Madge had something first.
Well, I have actually 2 things. One was the other entities that are going to benefit from this, like the school. I assume they would also, any other bond, part of this RDA funds. So they would be represented at the county oversight board? And they would?
Yes.
Yes.
I did hear a
Yes.
school district representative.
Yeah.
Yes.
It does.
The other question I just had is what risk or upfront costs are we incurring that if it turned out by the time this went through this whole process that the rates went back up again, have we burnt up some money?
There's one fee that's non-contingent. It's a report by HDL Corn Cone. They're doing the research on the data and putting together a report. That's typically non-contingent. Our fee and the lawyer, those are contingent.
Do you know how much the fee for HDL corn cone is
Approximately 15,000, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
And the way it's structured now, that too would be wrapped into the refinancing?
All costs, all savings, yeah, I should have that in there, sorry.
Yeah.
All savings are net of cost of issuance, so yes, all costs of issuance are in the financing.
So just to clarify, bottom line is that this could save us $40,000, but it could cost us $15,000. Is that correct?
Net present value, 40,000.
And that's per year. So the $15,000 is one-time cost. We're talking about savings per year.
40,000 savings per year?
Well,
No, I think you're correct, it's sort of net.
Yeah.
It's $40,000 of NPV savings.
Okay.
So you're at risk for 15 if it doesn't pan out.
But however, there's a,
But we've got the cash flow benefit.
you've got the cash flow benefit that,
Of changing the structure from getting it all in the 5th year to getting equal installments for the first 4 years.
and so what that translates into is approximately, we're hoping approximately $25,000 per year into the general fund, which we did not have before.
Correct.
Yes.
So it's the $40,000 for the bond, but it's also plus the $25,000 per year.
No, the
No,
25,
it's-
Or is that what it translates
yeah, the
into?
40 is sort of the summary total net
Right.
overall. I think 25 approximately per year to the city for 4 years is what you're doing it for, and the 75,000 for the other taxing entities.
Yeah.
You're risking the $15,000 non-contingent fee. I can try to think about how we can narrow that time frame for risk. Don't pull the trigger on data, engaging them until we're well within the period of time of DOF, Department of Finance review, so that we've narrowed, we're closer to the time that we'll sell, or we can get a bank lock if we get a really attractive bank to give us an interest rate that makes the savings real, and we can lock that in, and we mitigated the risk for that non-contingent fee.
And another thing is, if the expense occurred, it will be in the expense side, it's going to be in the success agency
It'd be on
fund.
the
Oh,
rocks, yeah.
right.
So the benefit side is on the general fund. That's the beauty of it. Success agency fund only can use for success agency related items and costs. But the benefit we get if this is successful, the $25,000 is to the general fund, we can use for maybe run some program for police vehicle replacement or some other things, you know, that type of program.
So the $15,000 does not come from the general fund, the $15,000 comes from the administrative fees.
It would need to be put on the ROPS if it,
Yes.
so in effect, you're paying 25%. The city's paying 25% of that 15,000, but I think I need to redo this so that all that's very clear.
Just
Can I follow? What kind of staff time would this cause to your department to go forward with this?
Actually, right now, it's just a minimal, it's just my time for now, and then the footwork we already did for his, and I will send all the information, the heavy loads, and then to Eric. So in the future, it should not, I should not involve like too much of time on this. But I do have, you know, I do have to go to the county oversight board meeting to present this, you know, agenda items. And after that, and then they're the one actually submit to the DOF, which is the state finance department. So my involvement is very minimal.
That's correct. Less so on the wastewater transaction, as an example, we're going to need. We try to carry as much of the load as we can, you know, as the municipal advisor on RDA refinancings. We can do a lot of that work.
Yeah, I just want to have you explain again. How come the 40,000 net over the whole 4 years ends up with 25,000 per year to the general fund? I guess
because there's. Yeah, it does seem a little apples and oranges. We're trying to be clear that the real benefit of this is it's a low net present value savings compared to, say, the wastewater deal. It's under the 3%, but you're getting the benefit. So 40,000 divided by 1.8 million, right? So that's like 2.5%. Because when you do a net present value calculation, you have to net out that cash funded reserve. You had $465,000 of savings overall, but part of that savings was capturing that $420,000, $25,000 reserve, cash reserve that's on account. You would get the benefit of that in year 5. So all the taxing entities would. So, but you have to wait till year 5 instead of getting it in the first 4 years. So we're netting that out of the net present value calculation because you already have that. That's already an asset. You know, it's cash on the account. So we're netting that out. So that's how you come. You
But the low net, the low 40,000.
And I want to be very clear about that.
Yes.
So.
Did you have any question?
I think I understand that. Thank you.
Any other questions here? Hold on. Otherwise, I have someone, I'll open it up to the public.
Yeah.
Any other?
I guess I'm having a little bit of a hard time understanding why this one is as much a benefit to us as, for instance, the sewer, the wastewater one. I mean, that one seems like a no-brainer. This one I'm having a little bit of a hard time.
And maybe I have a question, and maybe this, so the way I would get it is that with the current structure of the bonds, we have this end amount of money that's sitting at the end that we have to keep in reserve. And in essence, by restructuring it, we get to basically tap that money because we need less of it then.
Exactly.
And so we basically could tap into it sooner than having to wait for the end game to.
That's really the reason you're doing it, but you have to produce NPV savings, or if not, you know,
Right.
Department of Finance will not approve it, and you shouldn't either. So
Yeah.
So it's really two prongs, and we talk about the NPV savings, but really, you hit the nail on the head. By doing that, we get to sort of almost like transfer administrative fees into general fund, and we get to do it right now.
Because
So that's a
otherwise,
great
at
thing.
the end of that bond, we'd pay off whatever was fees or whatever was sitting there, and then the rest would have come to the general fund. But in essence, we get to tap the piggy bank ahead of time.
Yes, another thing is we submit to success agency approval every year. City does submit like $80,000 admin cost to reimburse by the success agency. If we don't do the refinancing, and then the year 5, when with the last year, we would not get the $80,000 reimbursed from success agency to the general fund either. If with this one, we will. That's different, yeah. And then the side part is on the success agency funds alone, we will get less approval from the DOF because of that service actually went down. Because before we probably pay example $400,000 for the debt service payment. Now because the interest rate go down, they probably will submit for that it will be $350,000 or just example, but not exact number, but just example. So we will get $350 on the success agency fund instead of $400. That case. But in other round, the general fund side, and then we get more money. Right now we don't get anything other than the $80,000 admin cost.
All right. Is there any other questions up here before I open it up to the public? So you want to come up here, please, and state your name? And you'll have 3 minutes.
This is Randy Dalton from Willits, resident. I'd like to ask you, what is NPV?
NPV?
Yeah, what does it stand for?
Net present value. It's a calculation to sort of measure if a refinancing and the savings that you get from a refinancing, if they make sense.
Why don't we do this?
Okay.
Why don't you ask him whatever questions and he'll come up and answer so that you...
Okay, well, it's okay.
The
I just,
microphone is just for the TV. It doesn't.
Yeah.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
I have two comments, and one is, if you want to keep local control, I would like to suggest that we use our local bank, Willits Savings or the Tri-County, whoever it is that's here in town, that the local business be provided for the people that are here, in which case you can oversee without it being in Ukiah or out of town. That's my first suggestion. And the other thing is that if it's a redevelopment of the building department here, maybe you could have a local representative that could attend the meetings to keep in touch with whatever, if there's oversight. He's explaining $400,000 and $80,000 for administration costs and this, that, and the other. And I'm ground zero. I hit zero. And 0 times any other number in mathematics is still 0. I'm still waiting for the Caltrans to come through with the dirt for the trees to be replanted in downtown, the landscaping. Somebody said we need parks. I'd like to see the monies that you're talking about go for redevelopment, but also increase the quality of living for our community. And so if there's any way to get a handle, I call it put a bridle in the runaway horse. You got big money here, and I'm still ground zero. And we need to have local control for our local community so that we can see the benefits in the terms of creating jobs and overseeing, what's being done with our tax dollars. So I would recommend that maybe if this be approved, that a local bank and that maybe someone from building department, or somebody from our local community could be appointed to be on that oversight committee. So it's not just out of town, out of sight, out of mind. That's all.
Thank you, Randy.
Do you want to explain NPD again? And just Randy, just so you're aware, the successor boards, all this has already been picked and it's all in place, so.
You want me to explain the NPV, which is net present value, which is a calculation that takes any savings that you're going to derive from a refinancing, for a bond issue, a public bond issue. You take that number and you divide it by the amount of bonds that you're refinancing. You come up with a percentage to determine whether that refinancing meets thresholds that are common in the industry for doing a transaction. If you're very low savings and your net present value number is very low, say under 3%, you should have a good reason why you're going to do something like that. And as I said earlier, if you're over 5%, you really should look at it very closely, and perhaps you should have a good reason why you would not do something like that, because you're saving money for the public. So does that answer the question?
Thanks, sir.
I think so.
Anybody else from the public? All right, at this point I'll June, did you have anything else before we?
Oh, by the way, I'll take the name of that, of the banker, because we'll be calling anyone and everyone who can give us a good rate. So.
Well, I think you should work with June on that. We won't micromanage that.
Yeah,
Did
but
you-
I think it's also, I just want to put in, I think it's good if they have that service, that we use our local banks. If it's available and equal,
If they give us a good low rate.
if they give us a
Yeah.
good low rate, local is always good.
As long as it pins out. All right, so I'll bring it back here unless anybody has anything else. Then I think I would be looking for the recommended action and to approve the resolution to authorize
I will
refinancing.
move for recommended action.
All right.
I'll second.
Motion, say any further discussion? Then I call for the vote. Kathy?
Councilmember Conlon.
Yes.
Strong.
Yes?
Stranz.
Yes.
Mayor Gonzalez.
Yes. All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your
Thank
patience.
you very much.
Thank you, June.
Thank you.
All right. City manager reports and recommendations.
Mine is very short and just good stuff. I wanted to thank the people who came out for Coastal Cleanup Day last Saturday. I heard it was a good time and picked up lots of trash. Thank you very much to Jerry Albright for using his cart and picking up all the trash and disposing of it at Solid Waste of Willits, who donated the trash fees for us. Also, Music in the Park, we've gone through 2 weeks. Our next week is Funkacillin this Thursday. Don't miss it, it's at 6 p.m. next week. We're gonna have a Charlie Young band. Both bands are great dance, rock and roll bands, so it'll be fun. That's it.
All right. Department recommendations.
I believe our public, oh,
I do have. We just mentioned the local banking, and right now city is banking with the savings bank down the street and doing our payroll outsourcing process. And then we found out, actually, number one, they not provide any customer or tech support after 5 o'clock. So, example, like we have a problem with our payroll processing, we call the bank, try to prove the transaction. There's nobody there because everybody go home by 5. So that's one of the issues. And then the second issue is they, some reason they was asking us for, keep asking that documentation, which is not complying to us. With we have Jim found out the article says we city does not file that certificate with the state of California because we're a municipality, but they keep asking for it. There's a lot of communication staff time just involved with those type of issues. And at the same time, it's also local across the street. The Chase Bank approached to us. This is one of the service. So right now, I haven't talked to them in detail, but they did propose they have 24/7 tech support. They have people on there for customer service all the time. Also, they have the more technology like online banking, and then more support, more modern, actually more suitable for our situation, that type of municipality checking account for us. And so we're still in the talking about that. That's what we mentioned, the local bank. Chase also is just across the street. That's what we're
Have you looked
They aren't
into,
local.
you said that our current accounts are with Savings Bank?
Savings Bank.
Have you looked into
Tri-counties.
Tri-counties? Still call it North Valley, Tri-counties Bank?
I haven't, just because Chase actually approached to us.
Okay.
It's not like I'm go out to looking for something, not yet. But we did have those, some lot of obstacles doing. We try to set up new accounts, just regular checking accounts with the savings bank. There was a take forever, and then we should be no brainer open another checking account because we already have existing one, right? So it should not take like more than a week, which it was taking more than 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So actually delayed one of our payroll process.
The only thing, June, I would just add, if we do end up switching banks, then I know that on some of our grants that we have through the feds or other areas, we have the electric fund transfer things.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's sometimes even a month before those forms take place. So if you do that, you might want to do pre-planning before.
Oh, definitely. Right now, we're still in the talking stage. We haven't looked into their banking product, but they are pretty accurate about serving the city for our needs. that's where I'm just reporting to council that might happening, but if we will have, I have to go, come back to the council for authorized signers and go to approve the count. That will be, have a specific staff report regarding that.
Yes, we would have to get your permission to change
Yeah,
banks.
yeah.
So, but we're just telling you that right now we are having a lot of technological issues, and also it is sort of entering into the 21st century. Chase Bank would be much easier to deal with, but I am intrigued by the idea of looking at other local banks as well to see whether they can service
Yes.
too. I think that we should do that too. So,
Yeah, especially we all work late past 5, and then we try to call tech support with nobody there. It says we close at 5.
And they're continue to insist that we submit to them forms of incorporation, which doesn't exist for municipality, and we've told them that several times, and finally we had to bring to them the statute that shows that municipalities actually don't do that. And then they said, okay, but then they lost that form, and so they've asked for it again.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit problematic working with them.
Yeah, that's, yeah. So if we go through, we will go back, get the council approval.
They wanted our,
Yeah, and just do check with Tri-Valley because.
Tri-County.
I will.
Tri-County, yeah.
Tri-County, yes.
Even though Chase has an office across the street, they aren't local. And they don't invest locally. And
Do they
so
employ
it's,
local people or something?
but they do.
They do invest locally.
do they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they make loans.
Well, but they also invest all over. Anyway, I would, but.
All right, Judy, do you have anything else?
No, that's it.
All right,
Thank
thank you. Public Works, it looks like you were
Public Works has something.
city manager's kind of throwing you up in the pit
I
here.
am.
That's good. Anyways, how we all doing? Couple things real quick. Gotta say, good job, Greg. Just got a collection certification. Frank Levine came through with a great idea for a new dog bag station at Babcock Park, which we just installed. Beautiful. These guys, are working hard, doing a great job. Big concerns about the red curbs and signs. I drove up and down Main Street from Commercial, from Sherwood down to Highway 20 before getting here. I'd say about 50% is already covered. Just the fact that you have bike lanes, which is illegal parking, and the fact that you have no parking signs that are already up at this point. We are going to finish painting the rest of the red curbs around the corners and the inlets to the driveways. We've gotten bids and money prices together for more signage and a new sprayer, because our sprayers, God, it was here before I got here. Wow. So we're working on it and we'll have it done soon. So any other questions or anything else, let me know and we'll take care of you.
We did have some correspondence on parking. Did you see this?
I did not.
I figure I'll pass it on to you, and figure we won't discuss it because it's not agendized, but you can follow up with Bill and coordinate that. I know that, like Bill said, there's bike lanes in place. We may not be able to change things, but
And I can actually speak to this right now because it's come up before. There used to be a parking spot in front of Mazahar. That was removed with the new configuration. One of the issues with that parking spot is that trucks cannot make that left turn if there's a car parked there. And that's why it would turn into a no parking spot, because it's dangerous if
Well,
you park
that's
there.
really the important part about getting the corners painted, because people are,
assuming it's
we got the T marks and the cross marks where you're supposed to park parking spaces, and they're parking pretty much where they want at this point. And we get the red curbs in, and hopefully they'll pay a little more attention to what they're supposed to be doing. But, with the extra signage, hopefully everybody will figure that out at this point.
Will the bulb out markings, will those be curb painted red?
Those will be painted red.
Okay, because currently people are using those as parking spaces.
Yeah, no, that's just,
Regularly.
well, I mean, we can't get them to stop at flashing red lights, so.
No, but they could get parking tickets.
Yeah,
Right.
we can do that. That's real quick and easy, so.
Thank
We
you.
are working on it.
taking a lot of tree damage right now too, so, I mean, I got a tree in front of the Babcock right now that I'm really getting a little scared about. We have an arborist coming in, take a look at that one real quick. So, we'll get there and let me know what you need. So, have fun.
Madge?
Well, two things I already mentioned is to Bill, that they did a great job on that tree on West Commercial that was very hanging out over the street, and they did a beautiful job of trimming that, thank you. And this is very, very minor, but I think you brought this up a while ago, Larry, that on the parking, the little T telling you where you're allowed to park between, when you're in the car parking there, you can't see where they are. And I noticed in other communities and other places, you have the thing extends out so that when you look out your window, you can see where the marks are.
It's extended past the piece
Yeah.
that runs parallel. with
Also,
the
if
street.
we run into the street another 2 feet, you can see a little better, so you're.
Because honestly, you cannot see it.
I know,
You have to get out of the
Larry
car.
had mentioned this like, I don't know, months and
My
months ago.
wife has to get out and say,
And I don't have somebody else in my car, so I don't want to stop the car, open the door, look at it. Anyway, it just, if it's possible to have those.
Well,
little
that'll
ones
probably
extended.
be part of the, come probably March when everything's redone, and we can actually touch Main Street completely.
Okay,
We'll be able to do a lot of these little things that we're talking about.
okay.
And Bill, when you do the red curves, is obviously Main Street's the priority, and will you be doing some in the neighborhoods? And
Oh, no, we need to get back in the neighborhoods, it's just,
I see some areas where you can't turn because people park in the faded reds, and it creates issues, so.
pink zones.
Yeah. Which I think would be hard to enforce, but they definitely do cause situational issues.
Oh, no, there's several spots, I can guarantee you that right now, that we need to get a lot of this painting done, but
Oh,
right
okay.
now it's about fire.
I figured I'd be able to get it out to public land, that we're just going to focus on Main Street right now, because that's been the big complaint, but.
And we've been working a lot on fires, fire areas too, so that's.
I have one more minor.
Go ahead.
And I saw this mentioned in the city manager's report, so I know you're aware of these things, but I have had a few people come to me and mention them, so I just have to put it out there. The water fountain at the skateboard park, of course, is broken. I think you all are aware of that. And I know vandalism is an issue. I've also had a couple of people come to me asking why the Babcock fountain is not running, and I know vandalism has been an issue there, but I just have to do my part to pass on the community.
I'm looking into a whole different fountain area at the skate park. I'm going to put a temporary old style bubbler in there now so they can have water in there. You're going to have to beat it with your skateboard to break it. I
They
mean, that's
will.
what they're already doing now with the stuff, the new ADA stuff. It's full of plastic and this and that, and they're, first time a kid hits it with their foot or this or that, it breaks the whole inside of it out, and that's $60 a pop, and I'm trying to take care of it best I can. So we're gonna put a old-time fountain in there for now until I can find something a little, more steady or sturdy at that point.
And Bill, a question, because bathrooms at the skate park came up, and it's my understanding, we used to have a porta potty there, but it got lit on fire, is that correct?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. That was a big problem. I'm still working on, I found some extra, or June found some extra money for me for an overhang at the skate park that we're looking at, so.
We did have a community member volunteer to
Volunteer
donate
some,
money.
then June told me that I had some extra money somewhere else I didn't know it was stashed. So I'm gonna look into getting that, some kind of overhang.
He has not contacted me, so.
Okay, well, he was here tonight, and I know he was here because the other woman made the skate park comments. Because they're now working together.
I wish, he needs to talk to me.
I mean, we're willing to do these things, it's just a matter. And right now, we had a meeting with Little League Baseball, and we're gonna start working on the batting cages.
He needs to give me a contract.
No, he's getting all his signatures ready to
Thank
go, and everything else is coming to you this next week or so.
Okay, good,
But we're doing our
insurance.
part to make sure it's ready for him to go.
good.
That's gonna be really nice for the kids.
Thank you.
You want to ask him a question?
Yeah, what's going to be being done with the garden project in the downtown, beautification of the main street?
I have to follow the leadership where I'm told to go at that point. I have no idea what they're doing.
Like that, the city council, to get that curve.
Okay.
All that dirt, let's put it.
You know,
She missed the couple.
Flowers.
Yeah.
Flowers, trees.
soil.
At this point, Bill, I don't think anybody has anything else for Bill.
You guys good?
Yep,
So, let me know if you
so,
guys need anything, let me know.
Scott?
Tell me what's going on.
I'll be real quick.
Thank you.
Scott Warnock, Chief of Police. I just wanted to let you know that we do have a ham radio installed at the police department for emergency at the Emergency Operating Center.
okay. Chris?
Oh, sure. Thanks, sure.
All right. Dusty?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few quick updates on some of our grant action here. We've been busy signing agreements and finding out that we've been awarded money. So we're currently working on an RFP for our urban forestry management plan. We met with a CAL FIRE official that came up from El Dorado and signed the agreement on the spot after talking to me and Jim. So that's exciting. That's going to be funding a number of street trees that will be going into Main Street as part of our beautification process. We anticipate the relinquishment of Main Street occurring sometime in early 2020 now, based on the last update we got from Caltrans. We also found out from the CTC that they did award our request to release the first funding for our railroad trail project. So we've got around $365,000 to start working on the environmental phase of that project. So again, we're getting an RFP out for that. We also are following up on our awards of money that we received for doing an emergency response flood plan. So we're getting an RFP out to work on that. We're wrapping up completion of our safety elements, so you should expect that matter to come before council soon. Let's see here. Staff is working on updating our master fee schedule, and we anticipate bringing that before the council in an upcoming meeting as well. And in that will be some recommendations for establishing the vacancy ordinance registration fees. So,
And these would be also other planning fees and plan check fees, that's it?
correct.
Not
But
impact
we're also
fees,
adding new
but-
fees based on some new activities that have.
And my question is, I know that there's some fees that we charge, our pass-through fees from the fire department, because they don't charge them directly, right? So we collect, do those come on our fee schedule, or is that, how does that work? When they bill, or do you bill directly?
No, it's passed through. I give an invoice that it gets plugged onto your guys' through date.
Okay.
We directly receive it from the fire department, we pass that directly on to the customer.
Oh, okay. So those sort of fees, if we need to increase those would come on our fee schedule, though, right?
But I'm not sure that the council has authority to actually approve those fees. They will just automatically be on the fee schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, our fee schedule's on our own ordinance.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I was curious, okay.
So it sounds like it's a cost recovery situation where based on the hours that Little Lake Fire Department staff spends on reviewing a building application, they'll bill us and we'll collect that on their behalf.
All right.
And then through the other way we reimburse them is through the cannabis application permits. And so when they're reviewing those, the same thing where they give us a bill for their exact time and reimburse them fully for that. Yeah.
And impact fees, I know that you guys are working on maybe bringing that in the future. You're doing research, is that?
Yeah, that's a little bit more involved process than updating just the master fee schedule, but that's certainly high on our list as well.
Okay.
And I smile every time that the council mentions that. So.
And cry inside.
Yes. You sound like me. Did we hang out? Yeah.
You guys like stay away. All right.
You said the environmental phase, does that mean environmental review for the rail trail project? You said?
Right, so that would be like compliance with CEQA, NEPA, CDFW regulations, et cetera. You got it.
Thank you, sir. Jim, you got anything? All right.
Kathy?
No? Gonna make the rounds there. All right. City Council Committee Boards and Agency Reports. Ready?
I missed Museum Advisory Board due to illness.
All right. Madge?
EDFC met on September 12th, and they have 5 different projects underway simultaneously. There's economic recovery and resiliency planning, working with County Fire Safe Council, lender in the community, which they're going out and meeting with all the different communities. They haven't scheduled Willits yet to talk to stakeholders about money available. One of the most interesting one was this Zoom prospector, which EDFC, which stands for Economic Development and Financing Corporation, they have bought this service, and it provides a kind of an overlay which will be very, very useful, I think, for our planning department, for economic development, and for realtors, and for prospective business people that want to consider the community, because it overlays zoning and flood maps and any other special activities, and it has data on all of the different businesses and how many people they employ, and demographics by zone, and you can specify specific areas or the entire town or whatever. So I did talk to Dusty and Jim about it, and I just think it's available now online. It's a beta version, but they're going to keep refining it, and it might turn out to be very useful for us in our work. I mentioned it to Stephanie as well. They're also doing the Sonoma-Mendocino Economic Development District and working with Broadband Alliance on our broadband needs. So EDFC's been quite busy, and I continue to attend their meetings.
Larry wasn't able to attend today, so I went to the Measure B meeting, as was law. And basically, they are going to go out looking for another project manager. The sheriff had asked for $250,000 for their training center remodel. I think they gave him 25, is that correct? 50. Oh, 50, yeah, they gave him 50 to get him started, but there was kind of discourse amongst the Measure B folks about writing him a blank check for 250. They wanted so they, and then in the end, they, I think, opted for $30,000 for a grant writer, or to pay for grant writing, to leverage funds. So I think that was the highlights of the Measure B, what happened there today. So,
is it appropriate to ask a question about the Measure B?
go ahead.
Did they have any discussion about use of Measure B funds for transport of 50 evaluations?
I don't think they did.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I know that there was a possibility of that.
I think they did have a conversation regarding the MOPS, mobile, I'm trying to think of what the acronym is. Yeah, outreach. Basically, where folks, and apparently the sheriff's technician or sheriff's person retired, and right now it's just staffed by mental health. But I think that's been batted around, but so more to come, I guess. So, all right. Excuse me, that's not part of our purview. That's not part of the Measure B. All right. At this point, council member reports and recommendations, anything?
Yeah, I got an email recently from, I didn't make a copy of it, I'm sorry, but organizations are getting basically proclamations from different local governments and counties and cities declaring that the climate crisis is an emergency, and to start prioritizing things that happen at upper levels of government as well as at our level. And I would like us to consider such a proclamation, and I realize that actually implementing that locally would have to be part of our priority setting process, but I think just joining many other localities in declaring that the climate crisis is indeed an emergency situation is appropriate, even if it takes a while for us to put our money and our staff resources there. So I wanted to just bring that up to the council. I'm asking if we could put it on the agenda in some.
Do I have another council member that is interested in that? I'll just voice my concerns are that anything more we throw on locally for something that I think is at the federal and state level is hard for us, especially when we have to re-examine our priorities. I mean, we have a budget deficit and some other things happening that there's a lot of stuff, even painting red curbs on the side streets that gets kicked, and so that's my concern. But I will defer if any other member of the council wants to bring that up.
I would like to see us continue to push staff for an energy management plan before we go after a resolution regarding climate crisis. I mean, if we can take care of the things we can actually do in-house, I think those should be a priority over a resolution that may or may not have teeth or have staff time to enact.
It would at this point be just basically lip service until we have the other
Yeah,
things.
I'd rather do real things than give lip service.
And the timeline, I think, because I know they're still working on the engineering project out there, is sometime this winter when she's supposed to come
Yeah,
back.
the engineering staff is, you can see them, they're on Maple Street, they're on Pine Street. As soon as they come in for the winter, they're going to start working on that report. They have a good idea of what their expectations are.
I'm looking forward to that too.
Larry, do you have anything? Nothing. All right.
Bill
All
has a
right.
question.
We just went through a lighting change
And
a year ago.
we'll talk about that with Suzanne as part of the plan.
So
We'll talk,
through these things.
we'll talk.
Okay.
You know, I'll just add one thing, and other sort of things I do, I found out that we're ahead of the curve when it comes to if we did a public safety power outage here. Because in some other areas in Northern California, when the power goes out, so do their traffic lights. Ours were converted because the city really pushed hard a couple years ago, every time we had a power outage, that we wanted Caltrans to go out there and direct traffic and not us. And so they put LED bulbs in those traffic lights, and they put battery backups in them. And apparently what they're doing in other areas is that, and talk about the extra burden on the locals, is Caltrans is wiring portable generators in cages next to traffic lights and asking the local law enforcement to keep an eye on their generators while they come by and refuel and check on them. So I kind of thought, wow, Willits is ahead of the curve there. So, and that's been, as far as I know, at least 5-6 years that we've had LED lights in all our traffic lights. So I just wanted to throw that out there. All right, any good in welfare?
Everyone.
Okay.
There will be a town hall meeting with our 3rd District Supervisor, John Haschek, here, either here or next door, depending how many people are going to be there, on Wednesday, October 16th. So the Wednesday in between our normal city council meetings. And it'll start at 5:30 and go, answer people's questions and hear their issues. So John Haschek's been very open to the public, and I think it's wonderful that we have that opportunity. So it's October 16th, 5:30 here.
And Jim Robbins is the one that volunteered for the coastal cleanup.
He
I wanted to
did.
acknowledge Jim Robbins.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I was out of town, and all I could think of was old Jim Robbins out there volunteering. And I just wanted to give him kudos, because I didn't hear, I think everybody forgot that. And I want to make sure you pass on that we really appreciated his effort. And so,
volunteer right there. Pink shirt on too.
you too?
Yay, all right.
All right.
All right.
And he did a good job. Very helpful and.
Of course, he's Jim Robbins.
Okay, so I just wanted to,
And Davey and Bill helped gather supplies and all sorts of things too. They helped as well.
thank you, gentlemen.
And the concerts have been wonderful, and the one tomorrow night's going to be great too.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, at this point, there's no closed session, so motion to adjourn. All right, thank you, everybody.